I hope your memory is still fresh about this term, urban raptor. Raptor is a term consisting of three groups of birds: eagles, hawks, and owls. So some of them live in urban, but naturally they come from rural area. This is city, okay? And then rural area could be the countryside. It can be pristine nature, or it can be the surrounding countryside around urban area. So some raptors like urban, some raptors like rural. And then people want to find out where they prefer. So the question they ask is that when I see a raptor, okay, you see this is a this is a this picture was this should be a eastern buzzard. So you see the background is in the city, and then they are asking, okay, if we see reptiles in the urban, then what are their characteristics, or what kind of species can we expect in urban? Then a research team categorized some species based on their frequency. And then how did they get this frequency data? Now, their data source come from a place called, or a website called eBird. I introduced this database in the last lecture, in the end, near the end of last lecture. And then they mark the season during which those reptiles were found. Let's say, perhaps those reptiles are found in winter. Then they say that they are migrants. In Chinese, 候鳥. Some may be found in summer. So they may be resident. In Chinese, 留鳥, okay? 逗留嗰個留. Birds breed or raise their youngs during summer, but they go to their wintering habitats during summer. Some birds do not migrate. Some birds do migrate. I would say that half of the raptor species migrate and half of them do not. And then the researcher focused on the time and location of records. All right. And then they use 4 adjectives to describe the abundance of records of reptiles in urban. So for North America, a very common species in urban is this red-tailed hawk. You see, the tail color is orange to red, so they call it red tail. And then it is very easy to see, so they classify it as common. Okay. On the extreme and on the other end, you see incidental. This word means you only see the reptile 1 or 2 times in the urban. An example would be this white-tailed hawk. You see, the tail color is white in color. So the name is derived from the body feature, and then there are 2 more classes: rare and frequent. Talking about this species, this is called osprey. In Chinese, you can call this, this is an eagle. In Chinese, this is 魚鷹. 魚就係 fish, okay? 魚鷹, okay? 鷹就係呢隻鷹啦. Because it fishes, that's why we call it 魚鷹. And then you can see golden eagle here. Okay, this is golden eagle. 金雕. Okay. Then this is the data that they found. The researcher summarized the data, categorized it into winter and summer, and then they count the number of cities in which the species were found. For example, let's take Yuying as an example. Okay, in winter, they can see Yuying in 8 cities, and in summer, there are 14 cities where this osprey can be sighted. So this number is quite frequent. However, let's use this white-tailed kite. White-tailed kite. It is this species. Incidental. Why incidental? There are only 4 records, 2 records. So you see the number is much lower. But then you see another number here. Okay? Presence detected. What does this mean? It means that even though this animal was seen in 4 cities, perhaps the observers in those 4 cities are seeing the same individual. You know, reptiles fly around, and their home range is very, very large. They patrol a very wide area. So perhaps today, this reptile go to city A, and then tomorrow it will go to city B. So the same individual will visit multiple cities. And the researcher, using some techniques, they deduced that there is only one individual among all these 4 cities. People in these 4 cities are seeing the same bird. Okay, this is the logic behind the observation. So this is occurrence. This word means how many times. Okay, how many times. So it is how many times that species turn up. And then they use these data to make a plot on the maps. So they want to find, are there overlapping in occurrence? Let's say let's use an example. 游隼, peregrine falcon. So on the left, this is the occurrence map for peregrine falcon. They plot their observations on the map and see if there are overlapping ranges. So 有冇游準咧呢度？呢度冇寫啊。So let's say you can find the migration falcons in this yellow color area. So when the falcon migrate, they will pass this area. But people are seeing this falcon all the year in this purple area. So these areas are so close to each other. And then the researcher will say that because they are so close, then we would there may be some overlapping in the migrant bird and the resident birds. So they use this to categorize the reptile species. They use this technique, this mapping technique, to conclude that in certain cities there are more individuals of this type of reptile. So they do the same for other types of other species of reptile like golden eagle. So that is the map on the right. You see, there are more categories. If there are more overlapping, it means the species is more likely to live in city than in rural side. Okay, so if those overlapping occurs in city, then they can those reptiles are more likely to be classified as urban reptile rather than rural reptile. Remember, our research question is still urban versus rural. Which species will live in urban area? So they plot their observation data and then see which species turn up in urban for the most of the time. So the finding is quite interesting. They use this word urban adapters. 嗱，呢個 adapter 咧就唔係話嗰啲咩，你有時嗰啲電話你轉插嗰啲 adapter。This adapt means in Chinese it means 適應者 ，OK adapter. So they change their behavior or they change their lifestyle to suit the life in cities. So who are those urban adapters? One example is this. This is a kestrel. I hope the memories are still with you. In Chinese, it is called 紅隼, okay? You remember in the last lecture, I told you that this species can hover. It can hover in the air, 定點振翅, meaning that they can fly up to a certain height and then just stop at a point in the sky. Then they spot their prey. What is their prey? Perhaps a mouse is their prey. Okay? Oh no, it may not be a mouse. It can be a mouse or something called a shrill. This is 渠 ，OK 嗱，我唔知我有冇寫錯啊？係成日注意輕個機。So mouse and shrill, they are both rodents. And these rodents are commonly found in cities. And especially, you may say that in cities, there could be more mice than in the rural area, or the concentration or the density of the mice is higher than rural areas. So these urban adapters will move into the city and then make use of that opportunity to catch their prey. And those species are woodland and mixed habitat species. Now, when you see this woodland, it is very clear. It means that these species originally live in woodland. You can imagine, woodland is quite dense vegetation, and these reptiles should have better flight abilities to hunt in those dense vegetation. But you also see these mixed habitat species. Now, mixed habitat species is that they can make use of different habitats. So apart from woodland habitats, sometimes you have open habitat. In open habitat, the vegetation is shorter than in woodland habitat. Perhaps in open habitat, there are only grassland, okay? 草原, okay? But in woodland habitat, there are some woods or maybe forest. So that is the difference. But woodland habitats, woodland species and mixed habitat species, they are more specialized to live in urban perhaps during it is because of their ability to hunt in rather dense or compact environments. So why these species live in urban area, and what are their characteristics? This is a photo taken in Taiwan. 唔知你哋仲記唔記得 Crested Goshawk 鳳頭鷹。You see, there is an avian prey. AVIAN. Okay, avian prey. So, this word avian, AVIAN, it means birds. Generally, it means birds, but sometimes people say flying animals or airborne animals. So, in urban, people found that the reptiles hunt more birds than their rural friends. Okay, it means that if the species have a greater food niche breadth, they can survive in urban more easily. What is this word, food niche breadth? It just means the type of prey in their diet. So you remember last time I talked about a species called crested serpent eagle, 蛇雕. So for a serpent eagle, its diet is focused on snakes, 蛇, okay, or reptiles, 爬蟲類. But in the urban, are there many snakes? I don't think so. So the diet of crested serpent eagle are quite narrow. But for this 鳳頭鷹, or in Taiwan they call it 鳳頭蒼鷹, it can catch insects, it can catch small mammals, it can catch small birds, or sometimes it can catch other types of birds, like wild parrots, larger birds. So basically, it can eat anything. So that is a behavioral flexibility. With that flexibility, this species will have an advantage to survive in the urban area. Okay, and of course there are some special cases. So you see, there are a lot of pigeons here. Some reptile species prey on their special resources. Pigeon is a kind of special resources. Why do I say that? 係啊，貓屎唔聽使，搞乜鬼？ So, an example would be peregrine falcon. You remember 游隼, okay? 游隼. Because peregrine falcon only catch prey in the air. If these pigeons stay on the ground, they are extremely safe from peregrine falcon. 游隼 peregrine falcon will not hunt any prey on the ground. But once the prey gets airborne, meaning the prey is flying in the sky or flying 搞乜鬼? OK， 我隻 mouse 有啲神神地，唔知搞乜事。Special resources. So I was talking about peregrine falcon. So if the prey get airborne, meaning that they fly high up in the air, then the peregrine falcon will hunt it down. So for any urban areas, there will be a concentration of pigeons, feral pigeons. So falcons will make use of this opportunity to move into the city and hunt. But special resources does not just point to prey, okay? Sometimes a habitat can be a special resources. For instance, 鱼鹰 and osprey will move into the city if there is a river that is wide enough for it to catch fish. I once saw osprey, 鱼鹰, okay, in the heart of Okinawa, Chongqing, okay. You can hardly imagine that there would be an osprey standing next to you in a park, but that is a fact. It is because there is large water bodies for it to hunt. The carrying capacity of the environment is large enough to accommodate such a large bird of prey. So that is sometimes the case in large cities. But there are some species who do not like urban area. This is open country species. This species is called 白腹山雕. I use this as an illustration in Hong Kong. Honorless eagle. In Chinese, it is called 白腹山雕. 點解叫白腹咧？因為佢個肚係白色，所以咧就叫白腹，okay? 白腹山雕。So they are not woodland species. They are open country species, meaning that they will have to soar in the air. And as they could not see inside the woodland, they need a large area with low vegetation, like mountainside or upland grassland. So they do not like urban because the structures or the buildings inside an urban area, it just looks like a piece of jungle to these raptors. Their prey can hide. Their prey can get away from these species, and these species are not flexible enough to change their hunting behavior to that in the urban. So that's why they do not like urban area. This is the typical habitat of 白腹山雕. You can see the vegetation are quite low, but if you move into the city, you do not see a vast area of such habitat. Okay. And do you remember I mentioned this word, food niche breadth. So the researchers found that if a raptor species is larger, then they have a greater food niche breadth. So what do I mean by larger? It means body size. How do we measure body size of raptor? Perhaps we can measure the length from its beak to to its tail. Okay, so this is body length. This is a measure of body size. On the other hand, if we have a specimen, 標本, we can spread their wing, and then we can get something called a wingspan. 翼展, okay, so we we span their wing and measure the distance from the tip of left wing to the tip of right wing. So that is wingspan. If a raptor is larger, then it has a tendency to include more types of prey in its diet. So larger body, more type of prey. Positive association. As body size increase, types of prey increase. There may be a limitation, but I will go back to this this observation later. Let me explain here. Why do they have this observation? Imagine if you observe a large bird, and then you see what is the prey it is carrying in its beak. Then, as large species tend to catch larger animals, it is easier to identify the species of larger prey than smaller prey. Imagine if you see a kestrel in the wild, the body size of this kestrel is already small, and then the prey it catches is even smaller. So you can see that the bird is catching an insect. But since the insect body size is very, very small, it is hard for you to identify it. So the observers often write insect. But you know, for this observation, when you write insect, and for the next observation, you also write insect, then it would be quite, I would say it would be quite meaningless. Because just writing down insect does not mean much. Okay? And then you have another finding. It is that urban raptors tend to catch introduced animals. So what is introduced animals? An example would be this pigeon. VTC 個網啊，唔知搞乜，勁慢，搞到嗰啲機勁慢，你真係要等等佢，好煩啊 ！VTC 嗰啲機搞到我好猛震啊！你等等我，好等等我。唉，而家好翻啲。So this is 油隼 this is peregrine falcon. So 油隼 is a native animal, even in urban area, because the city just lie on its native range. But feral pigeons may not be native animals. The feral pigeons may be introduced animals. Now this word introduced means that the animals live in cities, but these animals are brought into the cities by human. Perhaps in the past, people keep pigeons for raising, 菜鴿, okay? So, but some may escape. Then the peregrine will catch these escaped pigeons. So urban species has this ability. But I think this is rather related to this finding. If the species has a larger food niche breadth, it means that it will eat anything it encounters. Introduced animals is just part of the wide food niche breadth. Another example is this. Now you can see there are a lot of black dots in this picture. 幾恐怖啊，其實。These are the individual birds. So this picture was taken, I think, in let's say an American city, and these are starling. Starling. 椋鳥 ，OK， 木字邊做個京都個京字，椋鳥。And they are the European starling. Europe. And with even the most basic cartographic knowledge, you will know that Europe and Americas, they are separate continents. So why do the European starling occur in American cities? It is because humans introduced them. Some people may keep starlings as pets, but they may escape. When they escape and then they find their mates, they may reproduce. In a foreign environment, these starlings can reproduce in a great number, and these are actually the actually it is suitable prey species for peregrine falcon. Now, I can send you a YouTube link. You can watch it during the break. It shows how peregrine falcon hunt down these European starlings. So, okay. So this is another example of how urban raptor hunt introduced animals. By the way, this starling has a nickname. It is called 鷯哥。知咩係鷯哥啊？有冇人養過鷯哥啊？識講嘢嗰啲啊，即係你剪咗佢條脷就識講嘢嗰啲啊。And sometimes you will see in the wild, raptors will hunt animals that you never imagine of. There are two large raptors in this picture. You can see this species in Hong Kong. You remember the name? It is the white-bellied sea eagle, 白腹海雕. And it caught a hawk, H-O-G, hawk. Or perhaps for your understanding, it is related to wild boar, 野豬. Okay, a raptor can do something like this. But for urban raptor, they do not have this type of prey in the city. That's why just now I told you that they tend to catch more avian prey, like flying insects, flying birds, flying bats, 蝙蝠. Okay, so that is the finding in among urban raptors. So these are the three key findings about urban raptors. So whenever you want to assess whether there is a potential for a raptor to move into the city, then you can use these characteristics to as a criteria to judge, are they possible to live in urban areas. So that is part number 1 of today's lecture. We will return after a short break. 親戚友去賀年，叫到超嘈，係啊！啲鷯哥好嘈，我唔明嘅啲人會養鷯哥。